Well, good to see you guys. We're going to go through a lot of information tonight. I'm so glad that men came tonight because although a lot of the examples I give do describe some issues that women go through, the scenarios that we're going to be talking about and the things that people need to do to support their bodies for hormonal balance apply to men and women. So please remember that, or for men in your life, it's really important. Everything we're going to be talking about applies to both sexes. So the goal of this class, my goal isn't just to treat any particular system or any symptom that someone's having, because I know that so many people have things like hot flashes, or they might have bad menstrual cramps, or whatever it may be. There's lots of different things, but what we are going to be talking about tonight is how to really support the body so that things are getting better and functioning better over time. That's what that's what this class is all about. And remember that this is a process, just like everything else. Your hormones are a messenger system in your body. So you have organs in your body, like your uterus, your ovaries, testes for men, that are waiting for those messages. And so it's a very complex network. When you think about hormones, they're in very potent concentrations, and when they're working well, things are amazing in terms of what your body is capable of. But when you're under stress, or you're not eating the right things, or you're overworked, there's a lot going on in your life, it's really common for that very complicated network and that very fine balance to become completely out of whack, to the point where I'll often see people and make some dietary changes that make a big difference, but they might have seen 5 endocrinologists and have been put on multiple medications or hormone replacement therapies or all kinds of things. And so just really, when you look at this, I know that it can be very complex, but we're going to start from the beginning. So the endocrine system, your hormonal balance, that hormonal system, is really one of the first systems in the body that's going to be affected by stress and by eating the wrong foods after the nervous system. So the nervous system is always your most sensitive system within your body. It has to absorb everything and anything that's happening around you. But the endocrine system right after that is going to be your next most easily influenced system by poor lifestyle choices. And so when you think about the body, everything is interdependent. That's why my goal is that before anyone is going to have an organ removed, something cut out of their body, we really want to do everything we can to support their body as much as possible before that's kind of like our end result if nothing else works, but we want that to be the last thing that would happen for someone. So your endocrine system, just so you're familiar with the different organs I'm going to be talking about, it's going to consist of your hypothalamus, part of your brain. That's really one of the keys in terms of your overall system. So many people that have issues going on within their thyroid or lower parts of the system, often those issues are really starting up in the brain. So we're not going to go into that as much. There's not as much that we can do nutritionally to support that, but just know that something with the adjustments, the network spinal analysis adjustments, and getting the brain and nervous system to function at a higher level, that's a really important part of this system. The pineal gland, the pituitary, the thyroid, the parathyroid, the adrenal glands, your pancreas, ovaries for women, testes for men. That's going to be the majority of your endocrine system. So I'm going to briefly describe some of those organs, the ones that are going to apply most to what we're going to be talking about in the future. But your hypothalamus is like the commander-in-chief. That's what sends out the messages to everything else so that the rest of this system works appropriately. The hypothalamus actually connects your physical and your emotional parts, meaning it can actually create emotions so that you're reflecting on your favorite memory. That's part of what the hypothalamus can do. But it also controls autonomic reflexes, like the smooth muscle activity within your heart and other organs within your body. That's also part of the hypothalamus and what it really controls. But it also houses your body's thermostat as well as its biological clock. So there's a lot happening just in that single organ that sits inside of our brain. But that part of your body actually controls your sleep and wake cycles, so it plays a huge role in terms of your body's ability to relax and get a good night's sleep. But the pineal gland is also what produces hormones when light hits the back of your retina. So there's a whole feedback system with that. We're going to talk about that. Light is such an important part of your hormonal system. And so I'm going to give you an example of that in just a minute. The pineal gland also coordinates your fertility hormones. It produces melatonin, which melatonin is what helps you fall asleep at night. Some people take melatonin supplements, but sometimes the issue is further out than that, so the melatonin really isn't the true issue of what's happening. But think of how many people you know, or maybe even yourself, that have trouble sleeping at night, or have trouble falling asleep or relaxing at the end of the day. But I want you to compare that to how many of those people you know that sit in a cubicle all day with fluorescent lights right over them. That's kind of how their office is set up, and they often don't get outside a lot throughout the day. They're just in that cubicle. Or when they leave their office, they put on sunglasses to protect their eyes. A lot of those people are also addicted to sugar. They're addicted to caffeine, and that's what keeps them going throughout the day. Well, over time, what will happen is that weakens the adrenal glands, and we're going to talk a lot about the adrenal glands because they're such an important part of really your overall health and your immune system, pretty much everything, so we're going to really get into that. But when the adrenal glands become weakened, what happens is it really affects their ability of their pupils to stay constricted when they're exposed to bright light. And so these people become even more sensitive to going outside and being in the sunlight. Or they go outside and their eyes can't adjust. And so they become addicted to their sunglasses. For those people, it's really important to cut out caffeine and sugar. It's one of the best things that you could do, which is incredibly difficult, I know, when you're stuck in that cycle. The other important thing that they need to do is try to get 20 minutes of sunshine daily without glasses, without contacts. I know we're a culture of sunscreen and sunglasses, and we like to keep ourselves covered. We need that light to hit the back of our retina to stimulate the pineal gland so that we can actually produce proper amounts of melatonin. That takes time. So don't expect to go outside for 20 minutes one day and that night you're going to sleep perfectly. It's a process of retraining your system so it knows how to go into that response, and so it starts producing the proper hormonal levels. So just remember, it's okay to be without sunscreen for a period of time. It's actually very healthy to do that throughout the day, especially if you wear contacts and that's covering up your eye. So really important thing. The other thing that I highly recommend is vitamin D. So for people who are inside all day long, to really help balance the hormonal levels as well as for your heart health, your digestive health, preventing cancer, vitamin D is essential. And I'll typically have people take about 3,000 IU of vitamin D3 for a period of about 3 months. I actually took vitamin D3 for about a year at 3,000 to 5,000 IU every single day. And I was comfortable doing that, but some people aren't. It is fat-soluble vitamin, so you can have increased amounts or too much for your body. So you have to decide that for yourself, but a very safe thing to do. If I'm just trying to recommend the minimum, we can do 3,000 IU for a period of 3 months. If you're really deficient, if you're inside all the time, I would do 5,000 IU for at least 3 months, and then back down to 3,000 and stay on that for a longer time period. If you're not comfortable doing that, stay on 1,000. But it would be very different if we were farmers and we were outside all day. But the research has shown us that even for people who are outside most of the day, we're observing that they're either washing off the vitamin D that their body produces, or their body isn't absorbing it efficiently. So most people are very deficient in that. So to help with sleep, help with the hormonal system, that's just one thing that's very simple to do. So I'm going to get back to the organs, so I kind of sidetracked there, but the next endocrine organ is the pituitary gland. That's your coordinator. For a lot of people with it feel like they've had their thyroid tested a billion times and it comes back as a normal test. It's often a pituitary issue. That's kind of the root cause of what's really happening for those people. But that's your coordinator. So we're going to talk about, as we support different organs, different organ systems within your body, the pituitary gland just usually starts to function in a much more healthy fashion. The thyroid gland, many of us are familiar with the thyroid gland. That's what produces our T3 and T4 hormones. Really important for your calcium metabolism as well as your glycolysis. Your glycolysis is your breakdown of your body's food sources to create energy within your body. So obviously if your thyroid's not working appropriately, you're going to be tired or fatigued, or sometimes you'll be over-energized and have trouble relaxing. Very delicate balance with that. The pancreas is involved with this system. We're not going to go into the pancreas as much, but with the pancreas, Your pancreas produces insulin, which is obviously important for your blood sugar in terms of that whole metabolism, but it's also really important for producing proper enzymes. So if you're dealing with that, and that's something that you'll kind of know if you're dealing with a pancreatic issue, but overall, enzyme support is usually very helpful for that. So it's something just to be aware of. If you're chronically having tough issues with digestion, try an enzyme. Before you try like Prilosec or some kind of a Tums or something like that, try some simple digestive enzymes that can make a big difference. Ovaries and testes for men are both a source of estrogen and progesterone. Adrenal glands, we're going to talk a ton about adrenal glands, so I'm not going to go over them too much. But the adrenal glands sit right on top of the kidneys. They're often ignored. The adrenal glands are pretty hard in terms of, medically they will often say that the adrenal glands are pretty hard to touch, but there's ways to support them that can make a huge difference for people. So we're going to go into that a lot tonight. So the primary female hormones are going to be estrogen and progesterone. We all know that. But most of the problems that both American men and women have is one of estrogen dominance, meaning there's too much estrogen in the system compared to progesterone throughout a woman's entire cycle. But for men, what will happen is their tissues over time, their organ systems, have difficulty actually detoxifying excess estrogen. And so they have symptoms of estrogen overload. Estrogen dominance for women will show up as having heavy menstrual flow, frequent headaches, especially towards the end of the menstrual cycle, tender breasts. Men and women will have something called cherry hemangiomas on their body, which are little red dots that will often show up in the shoulders, the chest, and the upper part of the back. They can even show up as like a skin tag, but it will be like a little red dot. That's a sign of having estrogen dominance. Men with estrogen dominance will typically have issues with libido as well as prostate problems. And think of that's such an issue for so many men, and it's on the rise in our country, is having prostate issues. So we need to learn how to detoxify estrogen from our system. We're going to talk about that tonight. Progesterone balances hormones, especially estrogen. Some of us know women who've had like multiple miscarriages. They've had miscarriage after miscarriage. And I'm just giving this to you as an example, but often they'll have an issue of having ovarian cysts and that they have increased levels of testosterone within their system. One of the things that will happen with that is they have too little progesterone, but often if you increase the amount of iodine within their diet, it can actually support the thyroid gland as well as their ovarian health. Often they'll actually start to produce enough progesterone to carry full term. Very simple change. Often so many people that we work with will come in and one of their goals is to get pregnant through chiropractic. So one of those things is we need to look at is just really making sure that they've got plenty of iodine within their system, as well as there's typically a problem at L2 in the spinal structure. And L2 really affects the neurology that goes to your uterus and ovaries. Really essential. So that's just one thing that just gives you an example. Other female hormones are going to be your FSH and LH. We're not going to talk about those. Those are much more dominant within pregnancy. So an issue that so many of us have to deal with is something called xenohormones. If you were at the class in cleansing, we talk quite a bit about xenohormones. But those are, when we look at what's happening within our culture, those are substances that are man-made. They're foreign to our bodies, but they have hormone-like properties. Most xenohormones are going to act like estrogen, which is part of our estrogen dominance issue. So if you're constantly dealing with xenohormones, you're going to be even more, your liver becomes so overworked just from having to deal with that, it's very difficult to deal with what your body typically, what it needs to deal with on an everyday basis. Xenoestrogens combined with a congested liver are one reason why so many women in our culture have fibroids, menstrual issues. But really what will happen is they can be absorbed through inhalation, digestion, direct skin contact. They're found in our birth control pills that so many people take. Conventional hormone replacement therapies, any kind of non-organic dairy products, non-organic meat products, are typically full of xenoestrogen. Pesticides, herbicides, fungicides, solvents, adhesives, all of these things typically have xenoestrogens. Even contacts. That was one that I never have thought of, but they're a plastic, and they're typically not a very safe plastic, and you're putting them right into your system. and your body absorbs that. It can absorb those plastic materials, xenoestrogens, car exhaust, fingernail polish and remover, the plastic lining of your canned goods has xenoestrogens. It's hard to think about all those things that we're exposed to. Emulsifiers found in soaps and cosmetics, industrial waste, all the things that you're exposed to on a daily basis. So what do? Well, you might still use canned goods, but you're going to use them as little as you can. I know that that's a convenience that we're all used to, but you're going to try to use fresh ingredients as much as you can. One of the things that makes a big difference is just having a water bottle that's BPA free. And those are really easy to find now, or you can find one that's, lined with aluminum or something like that. And there's different resources that you can buy, but you make sure that it actually says BPA free on it. So that's one thing that you can do, avoid plastic water bottles that most people drink out of or they leave in their car. And when they leave them in their car, that leaches the BPA into their water and they drink that. Elena, there's a chair right in the front row if you want that. You're fine. You're totally fine. Yeah.
One thing is, they'll also leach when you freeze them. So I know people that
interesting.
don't like,
I didn't know that.
yeah, and I had a friend who was real sensitive to it. She froze
Yeah.
a water bottle and she.
Wow, I did not know that.
So I would.
Things to be aware of. And the other thing that you can do is just over time. I mean, I know it's an expensive change to make, but over time, go to Vitamin Cottage and buy the less and less toxic products that you can. I mean, they've got tons of resources for lotions and face washes and all the things that we put on our bodies. They've got lots of alternatives. And I know it's kind of an expensive change. You don't want to just throw away everything that you're using, but over time make those switches. So something really helpful for people to make those changes over time. And the other one is just cleaning products. Really pay attention to what kind of cleaning products you're using in your home, what you're inhaling. Really important, especially for little ones. When you think of babies' bottles, you want to make sure that those are BPA free. If you're putting a hot liquid in them especially. Okay, so any questions on that? Does that make sense?
When you say lotions
and
such, are you looking for something specific on the label, like a BPA water bottle?
So what they'll typically, I'm trying to think of what they typically say. The more natural, the better, but they'll say like no parabens.
Okay.
What else? I'm having word find issues today. No sulfates in some products, sodium lauryl sulfate, sodium lauryl sulfate, all of those types.
Propylene glycol?
Yes, thank you, propylene glycol.
I heard that was one chemical bond away from being brake fluid.
Really?
Propylene glycol, yeah, and
Antifreeze.
yeah, something like that. I had a friend who had a place up above Central City that he was caretaking, this old mine or whatever, and he had a bunch of different pops and all this stuff froze. The Mountain Dew did not freeze, and I had heard that was a really close thing to antifreeze also.
Yeah, interesting.
That and realizing that it's just a big bag of syrup.
Yeah.
And
Well,
when you
that
go to
too.
the fountain drinks, it's a big bag of syrup.
Right.
It kept me away from all that stuff.
There you go. There you go.
What did you say to do for the thyroid and the pancreas?
Oh, we'll go into that.
Oh, okay.
We're going to go lots into the thyroid.
All right, cool.
Yeah, we're going to really talk about the thyroid. Pancreas, really what you want to do is cut out sugar.
All right.
So I know that's easier said than done, but the less you consume sugar, the healthier your pancreas is going to be over time. The less you're going to have blood sugar spikes, your insulin levels are going to be much healthier over time. And digestive enzymes are helpful. So that one was a piece of that. So male hormones, when we go into that, are androgens. And androgens are your precursor to all your female hormones, including estrogen. So testosterone is actually a steroid hormone. It's made from the androgen group. It's secreted in the testes of males, ovaries of females. Small amounts are produced by your adrenal gland. We're going to talk a lot about that because the adrenal gland is always your backup system. It's your backup for all of your hormones. Meaning, as you age, you want to keep your adrenals as healthy as possible because in the future, your body's going to use those adrenal glands to produce testosterone when other organs really aren't, or to produce estrogen and progesterone when the other organs are kind of stopping that whole process. So testosterone plays a key role for men and women: healthy libido, energy, immune system function, protection against osteoporosis. So testosterone does a lot for both men and women. But long-term hormonal balances for men are usually not quite as intricate as they are for women. They're not quite as complex, but men are greatly affected by stress as well as different nutritional choices. So again, we'll go into this more. But when men have stress in their lives, they produce lots of cortisone. That's a hormone that's made by the adrenal glands. Eventually their adrenal glands become burned out if they continue that real high stress cycle. They have impaired function with their nutrients. And so instead of being able to really function with the cells and being able to produce healthy cells, healthy hormonal levels, all of that energy is used to make cortisone. And that cortisone is used to handle their stress. So what happens is they have very little nutrients, very little energy left for making testosterone. And so over time, the testosterone levels start to fall. The estrogen levels actually start to increase over time. It shows up as poor libido for men, decreased muscle mass, increased cholesterol levels, mood swings, depression, prostate issues, having a problem often with increased body fat, as well as increased chances for osteoporosis. So lots of stuff going on in there. So all of what I'm going to talk about, what I'm going to start to go into, is the organ systems that need to be supported so that your body can really move forward and start to support yourself in order to move in the right direction. And the first one in the handouts, I gave you some information about this, is the liver. The liver is a fun one to work with. But when you want to maintain optimal liver function, and that's going to be one of your keys for hormonal balance, what we found is that the individuals who avoid as much as possible the toxins in their water, in their food, in their environment, have some of the best changes with their hormonal system. We found that sometimes you can supplement, and some products are necessary, but if we can really stop challenging our liver, that's going to make the biggest difference over the long run. So how that relates to your hormones is there's two main reasons for having hormonal issues before and after menopause for women. Before menopause, they often have too much estrogen. After menopause, they don't have enough. And so when they don't have enough estrogen, that's when their adrenal glands have to kick in and try to over-support the system or try to work even harder at that point. So before and after menopause, your liver is the organ that actually has to process your estrogen. So when you have too much estrogen, your liver has to work extra hard to try to recycle and eliminate that estrogen. So that's one of the reasons that the liver can become very toxic or overworked over time, especially if you're being exposed to a lot of the xenoestrogens. If you work in an environment where you're exposed to that constantly, especially be very careful of what you're putting into your body, because your body's already working hard just to get rid of all the excess xenoestrogens. In a women's cycle, when you think about it, what happens is the estrogen elevates. As soon as if there's no need for the estrogen to stay elevated, the estrogen will start to fall, the progesterone starts to kick up, and that's when the uterine lining is actually sloughed off. The process starts all over again. But once that excess estrogen has been used and its purpose is done, that's when it goes into the liver. And that's when the liver has to convert the estrogen into being a water-soluble substance so it can come out through the kidneys and be detoxified through the rest of your system. If your liver is constantly working on trying to process dairy and sugar, fried foods, toxic things, do you think it's going to adequately process the estrogen? Probably not. It's going to be very difficult for your system to do that. If you're constantly stressed, you're creating an environment where it's very difficult for your body to decrease the estrogen. So we could talk about liver function forever, and we touched on this at the class on detoxification, but there's a system called the P450 system. It's a system that has to clean up any kind of burden of waste or excess chemicals within our bodies. The problem is that in our society today, there's an abundance of that we are exposed to continuously without us even thinking about it. Even if you're driving in a car behind some big semi-truck that's puffing out all kinds of chemicals and fumes, your body has to process that. If your liver didn't process that, that would sit within your system and you would become a toxic dumping ground. So think of all of the things that you're exposed to. I'm not trying to depress anyone and make you overwhelmed, because if you think about it, it's kind of scary. But those are all of the things that our body has to deal with on a daily basis. And so your liver's goal then is to really detoxify, is to convert all of those substances into something that's inert, something that your body can get rid of that's not going to cause it to be damaged over time. Signs of liver stagnation or congestion. We're going to go through a couple different things here, so pay attention because a lot of people have these symptoms. One is having spider or varicose veins. Hemorrhoids are typically liver congestion. Old acne facial scars. Being addicted to caffeine and sugar. cholesterol over 225, having a heavy menstrual flow, gallbladder congestion, as well as chronic constipation. Those are all issues of liver stagnation. Another sign of liver congestion, I always thought this was fascinating, is having freckles right below the eyes and on the bridge of the nose. Real common sign of liver congestion. It will typically show up between the ages of 8 and 10, when the hormones start to kick in and the liver has to start working harder to process those hormones. But freckles are actually a sign of having too much copper within your system and not enough zinc. That balance is depleted when people eat a lot of grains. When they eat a lot of processed grains, it depletes their levels of zinc within their body. Their copper levels are typically increased. When they have high copper, they usually have high estrogen. And when they have high estrogen, they typically have real thick and pasty bile, because their body isn't, that whole flow between the liver and the gallbladder isn't working efficiently. They'll often have a congested liver, so all of that works together. So that's when we also will often do like a gallbladder cleanse, which if you need instructions on that, I can give them to you. It's not a real pleasant thing to do, but a good thing to do every once in a while. But in Chinese medicine, another thing that's associated with liver is people who are really angry all the time. They have outbursts of anger, they feel angry constantly, or they wake up between 1 and 3 consistently. I talk to people that'll say, I wake up at 2 o'clock every morning, and they're wide awake and they have trouble getting to sleep for a period of time after that. Often we need to do liver support. So solutions to helping the liver sort of function better. You're gonna love me. Cut out sugar or caffeine completely. That's gonna be a common theme that you're going to notice here. Try to control your stress levels as much as possible, or do things to support your stress. People that have liver congestion typically are extremely B vitamin deficient. So B as in boy, having a B complex, supporting your body with B vitamins. That's going to be a real common characteristic to supporting our hormonal system. Also, if you have a history of taking a lot of antibiotics, that really depletes B vitamins. So just some ideas, but and if you really want, if you're really interested in doing it and you want to work a little bit harder at it, we can do a full-blown liver cleanse, which is, it takes more work and it's definitely a process, but that's the next step. If you've tried these other things and we need to get to a deeper level, that's an option. But signs of a really B deficient person, if someone has real big deficiency of B vitamins, they'll often cry very easily. They'll have a lot of fear, often a sense of impending doom, like something bad is going to happen to them. It's very stressful. They often will have depression, and they might wake up just 2 hours after going to sleep, and all of a sudden they're awake. And then they continue to wake up throughout the night. So those are just some ideas if you kind of can tell if you need B vitamins. But most of us do. Most of us, because of our stress levels, the B complex is very helpful in supporting our system. So this is my favorite thing that I talk about all the time in my classes, which some people really like and other people think it's not such a fun thing. But the 3 things that really support the liver, really support the gallbladder, are eating your apples, your beets, and your carrots every single day. Favorite 3 food combinations there. But I recommend eating a half an apple every single day. If you want to eat the whole apple, you can, but it has quite a bit of sugar in it, which is why I don't always suggest the whole apple for everyone. But what an apple has is malic acid. And malic acid within your body really helps the flow of bile. So for your liver and to keep that flow and not have a congested liver, an apple is extremely effective for that. So just eating a half an apple every single day. Eat 4 or 5 baby carrots, or if you want to eat, people always ask me, why can't I eat a whole carrot? Eat a whole carrot if you want. I don't care if it's a baby carrot. Some people find baby carrots easier, but eat 4 or 5 of those every day. The vitamin A in those is great for your eyes, it's great for your skin, it's great for your liver. It's a great source of fiber. Yeah.
And 1 carrot has 7 grams of fiber.
There you go. That's great. And I'm going to talk about that, and we can just talk about it now. But you want to, throughout this whole process, keeping your bowels moving is incredibly important. Having a bowel movement at least once a day is essential. Having a bowel movement twice a day would be great. Ideal, what has always been ideal, which most Americans can't even fathom, is going to the bathroom once after every meal. That's how our cycles should be stimulated, but that gets rid of toxins within your body. Anything that you can't get rid of, if your body has already gone through this whole process to detoxify estrogen and it's on its way out, but you can't go to the bathroom, and so that what happens is that just is reabsorbed back into your bloodstream body has to cycle through that all over again. And it's even more toxic because your body's already gone through this whole process of providing sulfur and methyl groups so that it can get out of the system. So that's one thing that's really important, a great point to bring out. Fiber is essential. And eat a 1/3 cup of beets a day. Not raw beets, but just your cooked beets. You can roast them or do whatever you want to do with them. But you get at least 2 grams of fiber from eating a 1/3 cup of beets. It helps lower cholesterol, but the biggest thing that the beets really do is they stop fat from accumulating within your liver. So the combination of those nutrients is awesome in terms of getting your bowels moving, keeping the gallbladder clean, keeping the liver clean. And it's such a simple thing to do.
Why cooked beets?
You can do raw, but they're pretty hard to digest. And so they can be a little bit taxing for your system. And I should mention to you, I always try to remember to mention that beets will turn your urine and your bowel movements red. So don't be afraid. You look in the toilet and it looks a little odd. Red is a good sign. But yeah, it's just a little bit easier to digest. So what we typically done in our house is I'll roast a whole pan of cut up beets, and then we'll just roast them for about an hour at 400 degrees. You just take them out of the oven. Often I'll drizzle olive oil, sea salt on them, and then when you get them out of the oven, you want to just peel off that the actual peel, or whatever that we call the rind, or whatever it's called. But you want to peel that off. That's pretty hard to digest as well. And then we just put them in the fridge, and we chop them up and put them on salads, or you just eat them. So I sometimes get the look like I am never doing that, but they are so good for you. So give it a try. Okay, so yeah, Todd.
If I'm juicing them and eating the fiber, I eat the fiber, but it's already, since it's ground up so small, because I'll do carrots, beets, find some greens, and I'll eat all the fiber. Most people chuck the fiber, I'd eat it all. Good for you. But it's already pre-digested kind of, so is that as hard on you? Or
no, that's a really easy way to do it.
All right. Yeah, if you can deal with that.
Yeah. But no, the more you can get those nutrients in your body, that's all I'm asking for, is just try your best. If you can do that daily, it makes a big difference. And you'll start to notice it. And if you're not used to eating a lot of fiber, I know the typical American eats about 2 grams of fiber a day. The goal is 25. So if you're increasing it dramatically, just know you might feel a little odd for a period of time, and it will pass. Your body will get used to that. It's a good thing to do. So other things you want to do, you want to drink water from a pure source. You want to minimize the fluids that you drink that are alcoholic, that have preservatives, that have sweeteners in them. You want to completely cut out your artificial sweeteners. That's also going to help your pancreas out. So that's a really important thing to do. Just remember that anything that your body can't use, like an artificial sweetener, your liver still has to detoxify that. It has to get out of its system. So the more you add in those things, like sodas or Crystal Light and all those different beverages that people consume, the harder your liver has to work just to get rid of those substances. Avoid putting sugar, trans fat, prescription, over-the-counter drugs. All of those things have a toxic response for the liver. So many people don't realize that we're so used to, I'm just going to take an Adrenal, I'm going to take a Tylenol, whatever it is. It's really tough on your kidneys and your liver. Everything that you put in like that, your body has to detoxify. So the less you can do it, the better. And that's one of our goals over time, is to really help your body through that process. So with the phase 1 and the phase 2 of the liver cleansing system, that your body has two steps in that process that it goes through to cleanse. One of the things that it does with phase 1, in phase 1 your body has to take all the fat-soluble substances and convert them over to a water-soluble substance so that those substances and those toxins can get out through the kidneys. One of the things that it uses to do that is sulfur. And so you want to eat foods that are fairly high in sulfur. Those are going to be things like eggs, your onions, garlic, your cruciferous vegetables. They're not always people's favorite vegetables, but cabbage, cauliflower, broccoli. Those are going to be things that are going to aid in that cleansing process. So just something that you can add on a daily basis, or at least a couple times a week. Make sure that you're getting plenty of sulfur. Phase 2 of your body's cleansing process, or the liver's cleansing process, actually uses antioxidants. So the more antioxidants you're consuming, the better to aid your body through that process. I really like the Dynamic Greens product that we have, but there's lots of different things out there that are going to give you antioxidants. Just want to make sure that you're getting enough throughout the day, and most people don't. Because of their stress levels, because of what's happening throughout the day, they burn up their antioxidants like crazy. And because our food sources don't have the quality of nutrients that we used to have. I always use that example, an apple from 1940 compared to an apple from today. The apple from today has 40% less nutrients, and just that simple food. So eat organic as much as you can. It has been shown in studies to have higher nutrient levels. But the other thing that you can do is, pretty much everybody has to supplement with antioxidants. It's a really important thing to do. Digestive enzymes is something else that's really can be an aid to that, is just absorbing your nutrients. If you are eating in a stressful situation, if you're constantly eating on the go, take a digestive enzyme with you. I know Scott and I keep an enzyme to help us digest gluten or dairy if we're exposed to it, and we just keep that on us at all times. And often we're in a hurry or we're at a seminar or something, we make sure that we have that, because the more stress you're under, the more difficult it is to get the nutrients from your food. So eating the apples, the beets, and the carrots every day, you're definitely going to get your bowels moving. And so that's something, I mentioned it before, we just want to make sure that that keeps going constantly. Not constantly, that's not a good way to say that, but
3 times.
Regularly.
3 times a day, two would be great. Go ahead, Tamara.
We just make in the morning, like, it's just apples, beets, and carrots fresh, and then we put fresh ginger in there.
Yeah.
And just blend it up. It's really easy, but the ginger really helps.
That's awesome. I've heard people adding like kale and stuff to that. I was at a seminar and a girl had this drink with her, and everyone was kind of staring at it. It was really green, but it was full of that kind of stuff, and she just loved it. Yeah, there's great ways. If you can start out your day that way, awesome. Yeah.
I didn't hear what she said she was going to mix up.
She mixed up apples, beets, and carrots, and then some ginger with that to kind of flavor it and made it into a drink.
The other thing I was going to ask is, why are dairy products so bad?
Dairy products really increase inflammation within your system and mucus production. And so most people will have that. They kind of stimulate the immune system. And so much of our immune system is in our gut. And so when people are constantly eating dairy, they'll often have lots of mucus within that whole digestive tract and high levels of inflammation. And so it can impair your body's ability to absorb other nutrients, impair the immune system in general. But if we're trying to decrease inflammation in someone's system, we want to cut those out. If you're going to do dairy, I recommend not doing a ton of dairy, but if you want to limit it to something like yogurt, but have a real good, or kefir or kefir, however you want to say it. When people do that, that's okay, but you want to have a good source, and it really needs to be organic, because it's typically, if it's not organic, it's full of hormones, antibiotics that were fed to the animals that are producing those. So you just want to do as clean as you can. So, and you want to pay attention to your response. The more I have people cut out dairy, the more they'll notice that when they do drink it or eat it, they'll produce mucus right away. They'll feel congested. They'll often feel nasally. So, not a real helpful thing in terms of your overall health. And it really can be destructive for the immune system, especially for little kids. So if we can get them off dairy, it can make a big difference. So that's a good question, though, because I know it's against what most people are thinking. So, okay. So then that's kind of what we're going into next. And the last thing I just wanted to mention. One of the signs that people really need to cut out dairy or really need to pay attention and really get their bowels moving is you'll see acne develop right along their jawline. They'll often develop acne underneath their chin or right in this area. So one of the things to just pay attention for those people is cut out dairy and really make sure that they increase their fiber and exercise. Exercise is key to keeping that whole system moving. So just some kind of heads up on those, just to pay attention. That's kind of interesting though when you're observing people and you get to see those things. If they're developing acne more like in their cheeks, that's typically more hormonally related. And when it's up and through here, it's often liver. So it just kind of gives you some ideas. You can analyze your friends and tell them what's going on. They'd appreciate it. So the lymphatic system is the next system that's really involved with keeping your hormonal system in check. And so one of the, your lymphatic system is like your defense system within your body, and it also transports proteins and food particles within your system. It carries around your proteins and your fats so that you can use those things for digestion and activates your lymphocytes. So one of the best known members of your whole lymphatic system is your tonsils. I don't know if you guys want to raise your hands, but a lot of people have had their tonsils removed. I know there were generations where it's just like that's what they did. Okay, so with the tonsils, what happens is the tonsils are a really great storage place in the body for sulfur. And sulfur is needed to help maintain your cartilage health. Your cartilage, and you look at that, how many people in that generation, was it like in the late 50s, early 60s that they really were removing tonsils constantly? Look at how many of those people now are having knee replacements, hip replacements, they've had knee surgeries, all that kind of stuff going on. Sorry, Mom. I'll let you shut it off. So what you want to do through that process, you're okay. So what you want to do through that process is you want to aid your body with having sulfur from your food sources and really aiding that will also aid your phase 1 of your liver's cleansing process. So not only does it affect your cartilage health, it's also sulfur is used for phase 1 of the liver to cleanse itself, that whole process. So your sources again are your eggs, your onions, your garlic, high sources of sulfur. So those are things you just want to cook with, you want to add into your foods as much as you can. Your lymphatic system is kind of like your sewer system, so you want to be able to keep it flowing as much as possible. One of the things that's really helpful for this is such a simple thing to do. If anyone's seen, I should have brought mine, a skin brush. It's like a long brush and it's got like a real bristle, like hard bristle, kind of rough bristles at the end of it. And you want to actually brush your skin every day before you get in the shower. Or you can do it in the evening, you can do it in the morning, whatever you want to do. But you start at the bottom of your body and you go in circular motions all the way up your limbs. So you start at the ankles and go up, and then you start at your wrists and you go up. And that's something that will stimulate the lymphatic system. Really simple thing to do, and then you get in the shower and you get your blood flow moving and everything. It really is a great way to detoxify. Yeah.
I had this cleansing book about the colon and the intestines and all that, and it said brush toward the intestines so that when you go to the bathroom that it all goes out. And then I talked to a lady at Vitamin Cottage, and she said, no, go towards your heart. And I'm like, it seems more like you want to go towards the exit.
Well, the heart typically just is because that you want to stimulate blood flow as well. That system works together between the blood and the lymphatic system. So you kind of want to go towards the heart, but at the same time, you know,
So just
you
kind of
work
for
it
the
all
middle.
in that area. There you go. There you go, compromise.
In this book, it said that because of homeostasis, that because I was doing it daily for maybe like a 5-month cleanse, and then it said because of homeostasis, you don't want it, your body will just get used to it, so slow it to 2 times a week. But
The skin brushing?
do it daily, or
You can do it daily. You can do it 2 times a week. I'd just be happy if you did it a couple times a week. But if you can fit it into your daily routine, it'd be great.
that feels
So it's
cool.
not, yeah, it does. It feels kind of good. So that's just a really simple trick to just use on a daily basis. The other things that you can do are really, you know, like people talk about how they bounce on a trampoline or they have like one of those exercise balls and they just bounce on it. It sounds kind of funny, but that's a really easy way to stimulate the lymphatic system, just bouncing. So some things that you can do. A lot of people who have stagnant lymphatic systems, they'll often eat way too many refined grains, way too much white flour. They'll often use laxatives because their body just aren't working appropriately. And what happens throughout that process, they usually don't exercise a lot. The symptoms that they often start to develop are just being exhausted all the time. They'll often feel nauseous. They often will start to have abnormal cell activity. Having a poor moving lymphatic system is actually like the path to cancer. So it's just such an important thing. It's not something that we hear about that often. But just keep it moving and keep it as healthy as possible. So that whole process, it kind of fits in. And really, it's kind of like cleaning the machine when you really target the lymphatic system. So you cut out dairy. That's one way to do it, to really cleanse the lymphatic system. You're going to cut out milk, cut out cheese, ice cream, that kind of stuff. Exercise daily. Sit on the exercise ball, whatever. Stretch your muscles as much as you can. Get as much movement as you can. If your tonsils have been removed, you eat your onions, eat your garlic, Eat your eggs on a daily basis. Do whatever you can. You want to drink a lot of water. Lemon water, hot lemon water, starting out your day with that. It's a great way to cleanse the liver. It's a great way to keep the lymphatic system moving. So simple, especially if you're trying to cut out caffeine. That's a way to just give yourself something hot to hold in the morning if that's what you're used to. People always ask me, I thought that lemon was really acidic and I shouldn't consume it. When you consume lemon water, it actually produces a very basic response within your body, and that's what we always want to move towards. So hot lemon water is a very helpful thing to do. Eliminate alcohol, coffee, soda, especially diet soda. And then really what you do is you focus on as many whole foods as you can. So things like your mixed greens and almonds and seeds, wheatgrass, those types of things, as much organic, as many vegetables as you can take. Having a big mixed green salad every day at lunch, eating steamed vegetables at night is a really great way to get lots of vegetables throughout your day. I talk to a lot of people that say, I just can't tolerate the taste of raw vegetables. Often that means that their system is very acidic. So you start out with the steamed vegetables and you do that as much as you can until your body gets used to that and starts to switch over to being a healthier balance and more being a more basic system. So any questions on the lymphatic system? Yeah.
What about yogurt? That's still dairy.
In terms of a dairy product, yogurt is going to be one of the best. You just want to avoid most of them that are on the market that are full of the sugar, or different kinds of sugar and additives and sweeteners, all that kind of stuff.
So like plain kefir would probably be...
Yeah, that's going to be, if you're going to do dairy, that's going to be a better source.
All right.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, full of probiotics in those types of situations, which is a good thing. But if you're not going to do dairy, then just do a probiotic, and that's a great way to get
Now, is the lymph system all over underneath the skin, or just like different glands? And...
It runs all throughout the system, but you're going to, there's big centers right under your armpits, around your genital organs. So there's different centers where they're really clustered together, but it does run throughout your entire system. And that's why the skin brushing is so effective, because you're stimulating that right on the surface.
So because I always make sure I get right here on my throat and under the armpits, inside of the leg.
Yeah, you want to do that, but be a little careful up in here.
Yeah, well, I have one of the softer bristles because I had the harder bristles, and that wasn't
Yeah, you
for me.
can kind of do some damage there, so be careful with that. But just be real gentle with your system. Okay, thyroid gland. So the thyroid gland is the next one we're going to talk about. The thyroid gland sits as a small mass in the tissue at the front of the neck. Its job is really to convert iodine into your thyroid hormones, which are T3 and T4. So your thyroid tissue cells combine with iodine and then also the amino acid tyrosine, along with your T3 and T4 that's released in the bloodstream. It's transported throughout your body. It controls your metabolism, your energy levels, your calcium absorption. Really important in terms of someone's overall balance. Really important also for having a regular bowel movement. The thyroid has if someone isn't able to go to the bathroom regularly, that it's usually an indicator of iodine insufficiency. Iodine is a big player. So one of the things, I think I have this in my notes later, but one of the things that Scott and I do, we both have family histories where there's a lot of endocrine issues. We buy kelp, which is an awesome source of iodine, dried kelp. Doesn't look very nice or really taste that good, but we just cut it up into very small bits and we sprinkle it on the salads. And it's got real salty kind of a taste, but it's a great way to supplement with iodine on a daily basis. Also, the ovaries actually need iodine to function and produce normal hormone levels as well. So you've got a lot of things going on that are very dependent on iodine. It's incredibly common for females and males, I should say, to visit a medical doctor for depression, anxiety issues. They're often given a prescription for an antidepressant. It's just the first thing in our culture that we do is here's your antidepressant or anti-anxiety drug. So many men and women, I can't even tell you the number of people that we see come into Body and Balance that are on 2 or 3 antidepressants with a combination of anti-anxiety drugs. It just has become so common. And it's such a complex issue, but realize that a lot of these people have a subclinical issue with their thyroid gland, meaning their blood tests look perfectly normal, but they still have a thyroid issue. It's often coming from the pituitary gland. It can be much more complex than just having a thyroid issue. One of the things that we can do is really support someone with tyrosine, which is an amino acid. We can also support them with iodine. So just some simple dietary changes, sometimes that's enough to make a difference for them, that they're even able to get off of those medications. And really getting the nervous system working appropriately with the adjustments and learning how to release stress has a huge role in that as well. So everything really works together for that. Along with the depression, for those people, it's really important to make sure that they are cutting out trans fats, as much saturated fat as they can, but they need omega-3s. Most of these people dealing with depression are so deficient in omega-3 fatty acids. And so that's one thing where I highly, highly suggest that that's one thing that everybody supplement with, is an omega-3 fatty acid. We really can't get enough of it. Most people, if you look at like what will be recommended, most people will buy a bottle of fish oils or whatever, and they'll take whatever's on the bottle or the recommended daily dose. Typically that's not enough to produce the kind of response that we want to see for someone. If you're really going to reduce inflammation levels and help someone's body start to function more efficiently, they need about 3,000 milligrams a day, which is a lot. I think it takes like 6 fish oil capsules a day. It's a lot of fish oil. And it needs to be a very high quality, pure source, or otherwise you're going to be consuming PCBs and all kinds of chemicals and mercury. So you have to have a good quality source.
And
Yes?
Can you take that once a day, or do you need to?
Fish
take that
oil is
twice a
one
day?
that technically you can take once a day and your body will be able to handle it.
Okay.
If you can do it, spread it out. I always liked people to do that just because it's a little bit easier on your system. And I get the complaint all the time, I burp them up, and so what do? You put them in your freezer. That's one thing, it's not going to harm the integrity of the fish oil whatsoever, but just put it in your freezer. Vegetarians, there are sources of kelp, there's sources of different like seaweed forms of your omega-3 fatty acids, but the key is just that you're getting them as much as possible. So that's another thing, especially when people are dealing with thyroid issues, hormonal issues, key that they really want to make sure that they're including.
What does the freezing do?
The freezing, what it does is when someone consumes it, it doesn't digest until lower in the digestive tract, and so instead of being right up here and digesting, it's lower down, so they're less likely to have a fishy taste, aftertaste. Yeah, very helpful. Doesn't hurt it at all, doesn't hurt you at all to do that. The only problem that I have is then I forget to take them because they're in the freezer. So I have to have a little note out for myself to take the fish oils. Okay. So the other thing with that is just making sure that you're getting plenty of good fats within your diet. So one of the things that was really harmful for people's thyroid was when we did the low-fat diet. It was like early 90s. Low-fat diet was such a big deal. And people weren't getting their proper nutrients. And so over time, when you don't get proper nutrients, your body craves more and more food to fulfill that, and people would gain weight over time. So really critical in terms of that balance. Get as many healthy fats as you can. So saute your foods with olive oil. Include 1 tablespoon per 100 pounds of body weight of flaxseed oil daily. I really prefer that people get that in the form of the seeds and grind them themselves. And they can put them, if you're eating yogurt, you can put them in yogurt, you can put them in a smoothie, you can sprinkle them on salads, whatever you need to do. They have kind of a nutty taste. But it's a great way to get good fat into your diet, and then taking a fish oil supplement as well. Okay, so a lot of people eat soy, and with soy, the reason why we try to limit soy in our diets doesn't mean that you can't ever eat soy, but soy is considered an anti-thyroid food, meaning it depletes zinc. And when it depletes zinc, it decreases thyroid function over a time span. So not meaning you eat soy today, you eat some tofu, and then today you're going to have poor thyroid function. This is what happens over many, many years. But zinc deficiency, people will notice zinc deficiency. They'll have white little lines on their nails. And that's a sign of a zinc deficiency. So you can supplement with zinc, but the other things that you need to do are really pay attention to your diet by decreasing the amount of grains that you're consuming, the amount of refined grains that you're consuming, increasing that to more protein-based and lots of vegetables. So that's one way to really start to change that balance.
And
Yes.
I've heard that the edamame beans are okay, that they're healthier.
Well, because they're not as processed, that can make a difference. But it's just still a food that you don't want to maybe consume every day. You can have them once a week if you want, but it's not something that you want to consume on a daily basis. Yeah, Todd.
Soy was one of the 5 major GMO, like one of the 5 first big GMOs that they, like it was corn, wheat, soy, cotton, and all the ones that we use a lot. And
We use a lot for all.
I just kind of steer away from all the soy.
Yeah. It's a hard one. If you're going to eat soy, it's really important to buy organic soy.
Yeah.
Organic tofu, consume that.
So what about
Yeah.
someone that has like a big glass of soy milk every day? Or that's what I put on my
Yeah.
cereal instead of regular milk. But
I would highly, highly suggest switching to almond milk.
almond?
Which I love. I talk about it all the time. I think people think I'm crazy. But almond milk is just a really simple way. It's full of protein. It still has calcium in it. It's a great source of calcium. It has very little sugar in it. I typically buy the unsweetened vanilla almond milk. It now does not have soy in it. It used to have soy in a lot of the products, but it doesn't have soy in it either. So that's what we use for our cereal. I use that for all our baking, cooking. I buy the original flavored for cooking so that you're not cooking something that tastes sweet. But that's what we use for pretty much everything, and it substitutes very well. Yeah.
Does it keep? in
We
the
go
fridge?
through it really quickly, but you
Okay.
can buy it dry, or not dry, but in like it'll be in the baking section,
Yeah.
like
Just wondered
supers.
something
And
about it.
I know, I guess if we've been out of town or something a lot and haven't been consuming it, it does kind of get chunky.
Settles, yeah.
Yeah,
Mhm.
after a period of time. Yeah,
Okay.
but I mean, we usually go through it really quickly, so.
I think it says on there, like after you open it.
Does it?
it's like
Okay.
get in however many.
Yeah.
So if you get the powder from the baking section or something, what do you just add some
I
water?
don't mean dry, so it's not powdered, but it's like in a little.
Aseptic packaging, I think that's what
Thank
they
you.
call it, the shelf
Sure.
stable
Oh.
packaging.
Yeah, so you can buy it like in
You
a
can buy it
non-refrigerated.
refrigerated, I
And
think, as
now,
well.
yeah, it's like in the refrigerated section a lot. There's so many people that have switched over to that it's now in like their
No.
half a
Chill.
gallon, half a gallon sizes.
5 gallons.
There you go. Were you gonna say something,
Yeah,
Tamara?
what do you think about all the coconut milk?
Yeah, no, coconut oil, and in terms of, that's what we use for our baking. And the great thing about it is it doesn't break down really when you heat it, so it's very safe that way. But there's properties of coconut oil that are great for stabilizing blood sugar and are great for your immune system. And so for those reasons, it's a great resource. We use it for like making popcorn. I mean, it's probably not the most slimming thing to do, but it tastes really good. But you can use it for all kinds of stuff. But yeah, use the coconut milk and all that kind of stuff. Really, what I do if I'm going to buy something like that, I just check the rest of the ingredients, and I look for things that have as few ingredients as possible. All of those little chemical names that you can't pronounce, your liver has to work with that. So the less it has, the better. Yeah, Juliana.
I had a question about kelp. Is kelp
Yeah.
a certain sea vegetable, or is that a general term for sea vegetables?
I don't know, but I thought it was real specific.
Yes.
A specific type of a sea
Yeah, it's
vegetable.
specific. Think of all the pictures you see of the seals swimming through the fields.
And all different
Like
kinds
green
of
stuff,
organisms.
that's a
Yeah.
kelp field.
So.
It is specific.
And they'll, I mean, when you buy it, it'll say like, I'm trying to think of what, it usually comes in like a plastic bag, and it's in the dried section of like all of the ethnic types of foods at like Vitamin Cottage, and it's like in the dried strips. I like it when it gets really old, which it gets real dried out and it's real easy to break apart.
So is it, so specifically I should be eating kelp, or are other sea vegetables healthy?
The other sea vegetables are going to be full of iodine as well, but that's just one form of it that's pretty simple.
Okay. 'Cause
I
I
think-
eat a lot of other sea vegetables, but
Okay.
I've never like zeroed
Yeah.
in on kelp.
Sea vegetables in general, if you just think of like the Japanese population, they eat it all the time.
Wakame.
No, you guys do all kinds of things that I have never heard of, so
There are
that's
mix- There are
great.
mixes that have like 5 or 6
Okay.
different ones in it that make it
Yeah.
really good.
So, okay, so your main goal is that you're getting iodine.
Okay.
Good question. Sorry, I'm not more help on that one. I'm Scandinavian background with, the kelp, so pretty far out there. So, okay, so the other things that you want to do for your thyroid are avoid chlorine as much as you can. I talk to so many swimmers that have thyroid issues, but they've been exposed to chlorine constantly, and that's real toxic for your thyroid. So, and I love it when people swim. So it's just, if you're gonna do it, shower right after. Get as much of it out of your system as you can. And what we do at our house too is we use water filters or filtration systems on our major sink, and we use one on our shower as well. The less chlorine we're getting, the better.
I was told too that iodine helps leach chlorine from the system.
It can. It can help with that whole cleansing system. That's very, very true. So if you're going to swim a lot, that's something that you might want to add, is extra iodine in your system. Yeah.
I have thyroid issues, and the last doctor that I went to see said if you can, swim outside, because it's actually the inhaling of the chlorine in the pool.
That's even worse
That's
than
worse
absorbing
than
the
it
skin.
actually floating around.
Interesting.
So
Well, and I
that's
know
what was told.
so many pools now are switching over to non-chlorinated chlorine systems. But some of those can be kind of toxic in other ways as well. I'm not real familiar with that. So it's like, what do you do? But you just do your best. If you're going to swim a lot or whatever you're going to do, you do your best. When you have situations that you can control, you do the best that you can. You use a filtration system when you can. We use a company called Multi-Pure, and you can just go online, and I think I gave you guys the website. But you can just go online, and they have all kinds of different systems depending on what your water has in it.
What's the, you said 1 tablespoon of flax oil per how many
100 pounds of body weight. And that's what you want to do per day. What I typically recommend for just about everybody is 2 tablespoons of ground flaxseed per day. This usually covers it for most people. So eating, and I should say too, if you have trouble getting that into your food, a really simple thing to do, some people don't like it, but you just put it in your water and drink it. It will really flush out your system very nicely as well. So I know I've recommended that to different clients just trying to get their systems moving more frequently. Just do that in the morning and do it at night.